It was it was 30 years ago today, actually April 7th, 1985, when I had the honor of conducting the first service on Easter Sunday, which was our first service for the then Simi Valley Church of Religious Science. And here we are 30 years later, where we're celebrating again the opportunity to explore what spirituality in our daily lives looks like, and no better time to experience that on Easter Sunday. I know that after the service, Reverend Susan has been so wonderful to put on the walls a collection of photographs for the last 30 years, bringing you current time. So be sure that you stick around after the service and take a look at those pictures. And also, I believe there's a cake out there we're going to celebrate too. Yes, so now we know we've got, at least Andy will stay, right? So, do you all have a flower? If you don't have a flower, raise your hand, because we want to be sure that you have a flower. You don't have a flower back there? Okay, if anybody's got two, if you want to share one, that's great. So, just for 1 minute, before we start, we're gonna start with an opening prayer, a brief meditation in a moment. But what I'd like you to do is just take a real close look at your flower. And I invite you to hold your flower in your hand for the rest of the service. And as you look at that flower, say gently to that flower, "Hello, my master teacher." Because for the next hour, that teacher will be offering you some awarenesses and some ideas about how your life truly, truly is a miracle, and how it can be renewed. Our theme this morning is emerging elegance, or elegance emerging, and we're going to talk more about that through the service this morning. This is, by the way, we're not only celebrating this spiritual community's 30th anniversary and mine as a minister, but we're also celebrating the 30th year in ministry for my cohort in crime this morning. My beautiful prayer partner, lovely Dr. Sue Rubin, is with us this morning. And so we entered ministry the same year, me 7 months before she, which means I'm your senior minister. And we've been prayer partners for a good part of that time. So, and I was honored to be invited by your leadership to speak this morning to celebrate the 30th anniversary, and I thought it was appropriate to ask my cohort, my companion, and my true colleague and sister to be part of that this morning, because frankly, I'm not sure if I would have made it 30 years without her as a prayer partner holding my hand through a lot of things. So I'm so honored with your presence here. So let's take another nice deep breath, and we have two chairs for you two special people right down front here. And while they're still standing, I'd like to ask one other question. If you were here 30 years ago at our very first Easter service, would you raise your hand? Or stand? Would you stand? So Luana was there, and these two lovely folks here are my mom and dad. And they were there that morning as well. And I know it took great effort to be here this morning, and I appreciate it so much. So let's take a nice deep breath, and just for a minute, give ourselves the gift. I'm going to sit. And let's take another nice deep breath. And in this process, let us allow ourselves to give ourselves the benefit and the blessing of letting go of anything but the awareness of this next breath. This means we get to let go of the past. We get to let go of the future. The truth is, neither one of those exists. What exists is this next breath. This is where life is. This is where the divine is. This is where the blessing of life is. This is where renewal is. And so as I speak these words in the first person, I invite you to personalize them for yourself as well. I draw into my awareness the spiritual impression of every great spiritual teacher I've ever had, I've ever known. Certainly the master teacher, Jesus, Buddha. Contemporaries that truly made an imprint on me: Ernest Holmes, Raymond Charles Barker, Robert Bitzer, Frank Richelieu, William Curtis, all my teachers. They made it possible. They made it possible for me to be here this morning. And so I invite you now to, just for a moment, call forward your teachers who still live in your heart, past, present, and bless them. And sometimes our greatest teachers are not necessarily ministers, but the people in our lives who stand for something wonderful, who stand in the integrity of their own being. Our teachers in life can be our friends and family. It can be the stranger in the line at the grocery store. It can be an animal. It certainly can be a flower. So in this moment, we bless whatever it is taken in our lives to bring us to this moment. Just bless it, knowing that to confirm and confer the presence of God is to bless. So we bless each one here this morning. We bless this Easter day and how it can mean different things to different people. We bless the people sitting here in this room, on either side of us, in front of us, or back of us. We bless the service team this morning, the musicians, the junior church, the children, the spoken word. This is a day to remember to come back to the blessings, the remembrance of the blessings of life, and what supported us in being present in this moment. So we say, thank you, God. And we feel the richness of these blessings. And we open now to the opportunity, to the idea that this is just the beginning of another blessing, a new one. And so we step into the moment with a willingness, an openness to see what that looks like and to explore the elegance of emergence, unfolding something beautiful this very day. God is, I am. We set these words free to be right now, knowing the universe has already said yes. And so it is. It was 7 years ago, this morning on Easter Sunday, that I shared this story to open my lesson. And I share this story again because oddly enough it stands true for me today as it did then, and I suspect it will for you as well. This is a story by Richard Bach out of his book, great book, Illusions. Once there lived a village of creatures along the bottom of the great crystal river. The current of the river swept silently over them, young and old, rich and poor, good and evil, the current going its own way, knowing only its own crystal self. Each creature, in its own manner, clung tightly to the twigs and the rocks of the river bottom, for clinging was their way of life, and resisting the current, what each had learned from birth. But one creature said at last, "I'm tired of clinging. Though I cannot see it with my eyes, I trust the current knows where it's going. I shall let go, and let it take me where it will. Clinging, I shall die of boredom." The other creatures laughed and said, "Fool, let go, and that current you worship will throw you tumbled and smashed across the rocks, and you will die quicker than boredom." But the one heeded them not, and taking a breath, did let go, and at once was tumbled and smashed across the rocks. And yet in time, as the creature refused to cling again, the current lifted him free from the bottom, and he was bruised and hurt no more. And the creatures downstream, to whom he was a stranger, cried, "See, a miracle! A creature like ourselves, and yet he flies. See the Messiah come to save us all." And the one carried in the current said, "I am no more the Messiah than you. The river delights to free us, to lift us, if only we dare let go. Our true voyage, our work, is this voyage, this adventure." But they cried the more, "Savior," all the while clinging to their rocks. And when they looked up again, he was gone, and they were left alone, making legends of a Savior. That story, of course, is very symbolic of what Easter is. It is a metaphor for Easter. The crystal river, of course, is a metaphor for what? God, the stream of life that is always evolving, always unfolding, pushing out. The universe is expanding at the speed of light. And this crystal river is the essence of life moving forward. And what are the rocks and the twigs? What do they represent? They represent what we cling to that keeps us stuck from letting go and being lifted into that current, the water of life, to merge with it, become one with it, and see where it will take us. And so this morning, what I would offer you is an opportunity to, just for a moment, consider what rocks, what twigs did you bring in here this morning that you're holding to, clinging to, that are keeping you from ascending to what's next for you in your life? Oftentimes the rocks can be attached to the past. Sometimes it's the fear of the future. And yet if we don't let go, we'll never know what the future holds. Sometimes those rocks can be attached to a resentment, an experience, a person, the loss of something. You see, I think that's really the primary focus of the Easter experience, metaphorically, is that letting go requires change. Can I get a witness for that? And change means stepping into something called the unknown. And when we experience change, we have a tendency to equate change with death. And guess what? It is. It is the death of what was and the rebirth of what can be. Too often, you see, we equate the form, we confuse the form with the essence. We become so attached to the form, whether it's a physical body or a career or a title or a relationship. As an example, think of this water as the pure water of life, the essence, the crystal river. It's in a container, yes? What happens when I take this water, this pure essence of life, and pour it into an entirely different shaped container? The container changes, that which contains the essence changes, but does the essence change? See, excuse me. I am one with the water. We live with fear that the glass will break and we will lose that shape, that form of whatever we're holding on to. And yet the message of Easter is the containers will change through our lives. Whether we're talking about in this lifetime, the container of a relationship or a career or something that's related to a person, place, or thing. And including our physical bodies. That container will change. But here's the great lie. The idea that life shall end is impossible. It is being poured into a new container always. And that is a very important thing to remember. Now, if you can consider the idea of the crystal river, Ernest Holmes talked about the creative divine urge, and I've spoken about this often. The universal imperative is to push out, to grow. And we're imbued with it. It permeates the very cell of everything in our bodies, our minds. These flowers have been imbued with that creative urge to push out and to unfold. And when we resist that spiritually embedded DNA to grow, to push out, to change, to evolve, to step into what's next, we're actually dishonoring, maybe a better word would be denying the divinity that has imbued itself in us, not to stay stagnant, but to continually unfold as the universe is. But we deny that divinity when we cling too tightly to what is, and we refuse to open to what can be. This is one of the messages of Easter. Transformation, transcendence, transition into something new. You know, it is said in the Easter story that the disciple Peter denied Jesus 3 times before his crucifixion. And of course, the 3 times represents spirit, mind, and body. He denied what he saw the teacher Jesus going through in this process of his transformation, in this process of his transcending conditions to allow himself to enter into the next plane of his expression as a spiritual being. Why did he deny that? Well, because this is not Q&A morning, I guess I'll answer it for you. He denied it in Jesus because he could not yet see it in himself. can you? Can you see the amazing blessing of your divinity? Yes, it means looking past all the things that we label and judge. But it is there. It is there. And this morning, we're going to give you an opportunity to stand in the truth of your divinity and open to what can be. Take a nice deep breath. Doesn't that feel good? Yeah. Now my friend Douglas is going to sing a song.
A new life, what I wouldn't give to have a new life. One thing I have learned as I go through life, nothing is for free along the way. A new start, that's the thing I need to give me new heart. Have a chance in life to find a new part. Just a simple role that I can play. A new something to convince me to renew hope. A new day, bright enough to help me find my way. A new chance, one that maybe has a touch of romance. Where can it be? This chance for me. A new dream. I have one I know that very few dream. Eve, I would like to see that overdue dream, even though it never may come true. A new love, even though I know there's only true love. Even so, although I never knew love, still I feel that one dream is my due. A new world, this one thing I want to ask of you, world, once before it's time to say adieu, world, one sweet chance to prove the cynics wrong. A new life, more and more I'm sure as I go through life, just to play the game and to pursue life, just to share its pleasures and belong. That's what I've been here for all along. Each day's a brand new life.
So what does one say after that? Happy Easter and happy Passover. Thank you, and particular thanks to my dear beloved colleague, friend, prayer partner for the invitation to be here. And after all the years of praying together on the phone every Sunday morning before I went to Westlake Village and he came here, today represented the first time we were able to pray together in person. So you know what's going to happen. Big things, big things. Where's the clock? Because otherwise, got it. Okay, so you know the statement that John Lennon made, that life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. So, you know, Dennis and I have talked, and we formulated from the infinite intelligence of God bubbling up from within both of us an idea, a concept for today. And yet, if life is what happens while we're busy planning, the purpose of anything and everyone is to make use of what happens. So, driving here, parked for a light, noticed the two cars, one in front of me, one in front but in the other lane, two license plates. One said, busy life. The other said, loving energy. So I said to myself, self, what is this telling me? Human divine, busy life, productive life. It requires that you go and you do and you perform and you have endeavors and objectives and plans and plots and schemes and you follow through. And there's family and there's work and there's the spiritual life and there's so much to continue to keep juggling. Love energy says free. Free that which you are to express its idea of itself as you. Third idea that was not in my consciousness before it happened. Used the bathroom in the private office of the most esteemed Reverend Dr. Dennis and most esteemed Reverend Dr. Jim and most esteemed Reverend Dr. Susan, whoever has access to the executive bathroom. And this is what is on the wall, painted. Standing in the light doesn't require a sturdy spine, but a courageous soul willing to face the sun. So, I said to myself, self, if what is required is changing your direction in life, isn't that what Easter is about? Isn't that what Christmas is about? Isn't that what Passover is about? Isn't that what all of the celebrations of all the faith traditions are about? For us to come together in the realization we're not separate as our objective physical bodies sitting here would indicate, but rather the idea that we're all here comes from the one divine impulse that Dr. Dennis mentioned, that creative something that wants fuller expression by means of you and by means of me. So I personally was raised in the Jewish tradition, and I was reflecting back on my years as a kid growing up in New York City with a very famous, renowned, beloved, esteemed grand and great uncle who to this day He's my open door. If I ever want to go to temple, which occasionally I do, all I'll say to the rabbi is, by the way, do you know Dr. Louis Ginsburg? And they go, oh, come in, please, front row, front seat. He wrote just a short 7-volume book called The Legend of the Jews. Anyway, he and my Aunt Adele were 3 streets away from where my family and I lived in New York. And so for every holiday, not that my particular family was particularly inclined toward it, but it was by requirement, command performance, you will come to Passover. And of course, as a kid, walking into the room immediately on 113th between Broadway and Amsterdam, anybody familiar territory round about there? I can see that dining room. I can see it because it was observed in the truest conservative Jewish approach to religion, to spirituality. The crystal would gleam in the light, and the silver would shine, and the linen tablecloths, and of course, for my uncle at the head of the table, the huge armchair with the pillow, because that's one of the questions that's asked on Passover, the very first night of Passover at the Seder dinner. Why do we recline on that night? And it is to acknowledge all of the ideas of suffering when the Jews were making their exodus from being slaves in Egypt, to finally this day, in this generation, to have that movement through suffering to triumph, to victory, to the opportunity to rest on what our teachers and masters and all of those who have philosophized and spiritualized the opportunity we have to stand in truth. So that was the exodus from the slavery. And Easter, of course, represents the celebration of the triumph of Jesus, the Christ, from the crucifixion, out of the suffering, again, the triumph, the celebration of the resurrection. And yet all of that happened. My goodness, Passover and the Exodus happened 3,300 years ago. And after that, 1,000 or so more years later, the incident of the crucifixion, and God, I think some Christians would take that to be kind of cavalier to say after the incident. Sorry. The happening would be more like it. So what do you get today, the year 2015, when you take these experiences, all of which are simply the connecting links to what is happening now? There was suffering then, the triumph of victory, of something within each one that faced in a different direction, facing light, facing the divinity of that essence of spirit that lives within us. And you'll notice both the experience of Easter and Passover always are scheduled in early spring. So obviously there's a lesson in nature. Nature is showing us by its own natural progressive unfoldment the way that life rises from seemingly an invisible nowhere into a tangible, visible something, only in that particular form it has taken while in its present incarnation, to then give way. The passing, which all of us in the Western culture, let's face it, death, we don't talk about it. Let's have fun. Busy life. Love energy says, I come, I leave, I come again. Just in a different form. Consciousness will always become form. So here's a quotation from Ernest Holmes, which I have never seen before. It was posted on our listserv, and here's what it says. And it's from A Journey into Life, which I've never heard of either. Ernest Holmes. Today the horizon is clear. The voyage starts anew. We are reborn. The true resurrection is not only from this life into the next. It takes place daily and hourly as we shed our limited concepts and come into the vineyard to gather the fruit of the Spirit, hanging rich from the vines of God. I hang rich from the vine of God. Would you say that with me? I hang rich from the vine of God. It's true. We're the emanation of something that of itself you can see, but we're the scene. A person may be reborn, remade, renewed in mind and body just through taking a little time to get acquainted with his better self, just through coming to recognize the invisible and almost unknown guest who accompanies everyone through life, the spiritual presence within. We should resurrect ourselves to the joy and simplicity and spontaneity of life and leave the corpses of our dead yesterdays in the tomb of their own obscurity. We should live more abundantly in God this day. I live in God more abundantly this day. Would you say that with me? I live in God more abundantly this day. When we come out of our tomb of ignorance and disbelief, how glorious shall be the dawn. Is that gorgeous or what? It's gorgeous. Okay. Okay. So that's the moment that we have right here and right now. And I believe the purpose of why we gather, why we do the work we do spiritually, is not only to gain that sense of who we are, and with that, to experience spiritual empowerment, but to use that as the segue into self-givingness, into giving back to life what I discover when I discover myself. So for the moment, that's the way it really is.
Yes, you may applaud. Isn't she great? Yeah, you hold. Yeah, well, you can hold on to that for a minute. So, I'm going to offer you your choice, Rose or Lily, I guess. Oh, Iris, excuse me. Oh, shut up. Yeah.
I'll go for the rose.
You want the rose? Sorry.
Life is what happens when you're busy making other plans.
No, the point is, what you cling to causes suffering.
Yes.
You wanted the speaking feelings, nothing more than. Oh, God, that was good. All right, so a moment of levity, but let's also talk about the profound meaning of this gift, this teacher that you hold in your hands. And I've long loved the symbology of a rose, especially for the Easter service, because it represents to me this idea of elegance emerging. If you think a seed, before this was anything, it was a bulb in the ground. And some intelligence within that bulb knew how to bring it in forward and unfold the beauty of this rose. Nobody had to tell it what to do. That the rose knew what it needed to do. It just needed exposure to light, water, and proper care. This emergence of self is so evident in a rose, in a flower, whatever flower. So when you think about this ceremony that we're going to be doing, remember that flowers also return to the source from whence they came. You get what I'm saying? They don't stay a flower forever. They let go of this form, but the essence, that water of life, finds a new way to express itself. What say you?
So nature, if truly it is our teacher, if it shows us through the planting of a seed, that which covers it and which now submerges it in obscurity to our human eye, I know that the impatience of myself as a human is not often considering consistently the fact that there's something going on interiorly, invisibly. I'm more geared in my humanness sometimes to wait to see the bloom. I want the bloom. I want the flower. I want the color. I want the tangible evidence. And yet I think the healing power of the spiritual principles that we particularly are studying through the science of mind, they continue to reveal to us that when we treat, when we do our affirmative prayer, and nothing appears to be happening on the outside, something is always happening in the interior. There is growth, there is gestation, there is germination that has to be the precursor to the emerging of this beauty.
And release.
Yes. Oh, I don't want that. I want that one back.
Too late. So this ritual that we're going to do now, this is your moment. The flower you hold not only is your teacher, but it also represents your understanding of being blessed, because a flower is one of the greatest forms of blessing. When we give flowers, we're giving a blessing. But think about this. As we do this ritual, you're going to be invited to, we're going to go into a brief meditation and a mindfulness practice in a minute. And then you're going to rise from your seats in an orderly manner. We'll tell you how to do that in a moment. And you're going to mindfully walk down the aisle, either aisle, and you're going to place your flower in one of these two vases in the front. But don't just make this a process of putting the flower in the vase. Find a place in your life today. See, Easter is meaningless unless we find a way to apply it in our lives this holy instant. Find a way to find whatever that rock is, that twig is, something that you're ready to let go of so that you may literally rise into the flow of that water of life and be renewed. For myself personally, 7 years ago, I stood on this stage and on that day announced that I was leaving this spiritual community to find what was next for me. I had no idea at the time what that was, but I knew, and that was a very meaningful, we did this ceremony that morning. It was very meaningful. When I put my flower in the vase, I was releasing this community and you. No idea where I was going. And here, 4 books later, with a publisher doing things in the world that I never dreamed I'd be doing. Writing and doing, taking you, what we've learned here, together into the world. Today, 7 years later, as I place this vase in, the flower in the vase, I will be releasing this community, not just this community, but the community of Simi Valley. Diane and I have made a decision to move, to ask the universe where it is we're supposed to be. We're open to the next adventure. So the house is on the market and we'll be leaving this area in the near future. So for me, it's another process of release and stepping into what's next. So
for example, if we're talking today about elegance emerging, I looked up the origin of the word elegance, and it truly, at its base definition, has to do with simplicity and ingenuity. Would that not be the intelligence of the universe, operating with simplicity and ingenuity by means of us? And emerging from its Latin derivation is standing in the light, being that light. So perhaps that or any other affirmation of some depth that that you're willing to declare for yourself as your own sanctified and sacred covenant when you're putting your flower into the vase, you can say, I am eternal elegance emerging,
and
or I am, some I am statement.
And opening to what's next without having to know today what that is. So I'm going to, the way we'll do this is we're going to, the 2 side sections will do this at the same time together. You're going to rise starting with this row. You're going to rise, come down, place your flower in the vase. And think about it. As you place it in the vase, bless something or someone. And go back around this way, back down to where your seat is. So this row will do the same thing. When this row is complete, you'll rise, come down, place your vase, flower in the vase, go back around to your row and back into your seats. Do you understand the process? Same over here. You'll rise, place the flower in the vase, and go back, you go counterclockwise around your aisle and back down to your seats this way. And when they're finished, and we'll do the same here with this, the center section rising, placing your flower in either vase, and go back around to your row. Make sense? Okay, good. So what I'd like to do is ask if we can dim some of the lights just for a few minutes. I'm going to sing a song for you, and it's a very brief song. And for me, this is probably one of the, I love singing this song at Easter because it signifies what we're talking about surrender. I think that Jesus' moment of transformation was in the Garden of Gethsemane when he literally said, "Not my will, Father, but thine." Could I have a little monitor, please? If you can imagine the teacher in the garden, just prior to what was to happen, having this conversation with God. May you personalize this for yourself. Take a nice deep breath. Here I am, Father. Use me. Guide me. Fill me. Take me. Lead me by your will. Here I am, Lord, ready to follow, to serve you, to love you, to be you in this world. Thy will is done through me this day. Thy will is done through me this day. Lord, you call, I answer. I'm open, I listen, I hear you, I feel you move in me. Lord, I come closer, humbled, surrendered, lifted, committed to this plan. Thy will is done through me this day. Thy will is done through me this day. Here I am, Lord, I come. Here I am, Lord, I come. Now just for a moment. Oh, please. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Just for a moment, I invite you to sit with this moment and say to yourself, thy will be done. And that's not giving up control of your life. What that is owning the divine possibilities, that there's something greater for you to know and be and do when you walk out of these doors. So let's just close our eyes for a moment and enter into the blessing of that awareness. And ask ourselves, am I ready to release whatever it is? Perhaps it's a person, perhaps it's a thing, perhaps it's a resentment or a grudge. Something that will free me and lift me into the possibilities of new life today.
And in this meditative, sacred moment, I simply allow myself to be that open vehicle through which the divine declares itself more fully into being by means of everything I do right here and right now and the consciousness from which I do it. So I give my beauty from the awareness I am forever that beauty, right here and right now.
Why don't you go over there and stand with that? What we'd like to do is ask the rose to mindfully, that means being present with the action, to rise one row at a time. And as you come up, placing your vase, your flower in the vase, leave some aspect of what the attachment is there and return to your seat open. Make this a mindfulness walk. While this is going on, I invite you to breathe, to be with your breath. Be here now. You can do it. Yeah. Invite some of you in the center to put your flowers in this vase so they remain equal in volume. is your breath right now. Come back to your center. Be here. Be here now. You know, it is said that reverence is the practice of looking beyond the shell, beyond the appearances, and seeing the presence of God. And what you have done just now was a great act of reverence in creating something incredibly beautiful. These two arrangements. You realize that a florist could not do any better than this, other than maybe that one in the middle, which is a little high. But perfectionist in
It's
me.
a bit higher.
But what's important for you to realize at this point, and what you have created collectively as a spiritual community here is a thing of beauty. And it would not, these would not be complete without every one of you here today participating in this. And I would suspect that probably there was some emotion for some of you, many of you, around releasing your beloved Dr. Jim to what is next for him. And yet that is also part of the process for this spiritual community to step into what's next. Something new, something beautiful, something yet unexpressed. And as you release him, you open to what's next, and whoever that might be, to be your spiritual director in a way that would be unlike any other person. Nice deep breath. You have anything to add to that?
So this beauty from the Garden of Life that each of us individually contributed to is the message for our lives, because there's that same beauty that is so tailored, so elegantly to emerge by means of you and by means of me through the discovery, not only of who we are. Yes, we can declare from now until forever, I am spirit, I am pure, perfect truth, mind God. But if we just let it stop there and simply become speakers of the word rather than doers of the word, so that every day becomes that creative opportunity by which I commit my life to bringing that slice of beauty that I am to the container of life, knowing that that's just for today. When I get to do it today, that doesn't mean it's the beginning and end of the whole cycle. It means tomorrow morning I get up and I do the same thing. I use the spiritual empowerment and the discovery and understanding of who I am for the purpose of giving back to life the gift that I've already been given.
There it is.
You're never too old, too young, too thin, too fat, too tall, too short. There is an equal playing field in that infinite field of divine potentiality. And until and unless we all recognize it within ourselves, we'll continue to see the outpicturing of our individual and collective consciousness that's showing us a world that needs a change. And it's not through physical power or force. It really is through the actual utilization of soul power that buds and flourishes and blossoms all on its own with simple ingenuity, because it is elegant.
Yes. So as we end this portion of our service, I invite you again to take a deep breath. And on that exhale, release something of gratitude and open to what's next with this next breath. What's next? Now we'd like to call the ushers forward, and we'll be taking our offertory. And as you give this gift, I encourage you to think of it as part of this giving to what is next for this spiritual community. So, Reverend, hold your gift in your hand, if you will. We're going to do a real quick blessing on this prayer, on this giving. So, Reverend Sue, why don't you give that for us?
Okay. So just as I placed the unique beauty and richness of my flower in the vase, so now I place my awareness of the richness of the gift I give. It is full. It is of divine measure, which means it's immeasurable. So I give my gift for one reason and one reason only, because it is tangible evidence of my faith that I am source. I am substance. I am the evidence of the supply of my life. So I give to my spiritual community right here and right now with generosity, with joy, with freedom, knowing that I'm really giving from myself to myself for every self that represents the one, knowing all are blessed, all are flourished. This community expands into its new manifest form that represents the fuller expression of God, individually and collectively, one and all. All is well, all is God, and so it is.
So it is.
I am so blessed, I am so blessed, I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed, I am so blessed, I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed.
Before we close, let's honor our wonderful guest musician, Doug, and the band, and Andy.
Douglas,
Thank you. Yes, thank you. And our service team this morning for helping create this experience for us. I would like to request now that the service team, if you could take these vases and put them out in the lobby now. If you could take these vases and put them in the lobby, and here's what we'd like you to do. As you leave today, after you have your piece of cake and look at all the pictures on the wall celebrating the 30th anniversary, pick a flower out of one of the vases and take it home with you. Put it in a glass of, or a vase of water, and let it keep you present with this experience today. But here's the hook. You cannot take the same kind of flower that you'd put in. No attachments, eh? So we're going to close with 2 affirmations, and the kids are going to come in to join us for our peace song. My affirmation is this. Say this with me. My consciousness goes before me, to announce my coming. And it's amazing. Dr. Sue.
So I'm saying it in a little different way. This was on a church in Russia after World War I. Close your eyes and take this into your consciousness. It says, "Shake your souls. Awake, the promised hour has come. Over the dark firmament of perceived suffering, humanity is rising. The morning star is heralding the day when you will understand that man's most sacred duty is to break the fetters with which ignorance and fear have bound unconscious humanity. It is now time for you to stand up free and know yourselves to be the eternal manifestation of that great all which you call God." So together, let's just say, God is, I am, and that's the way it really is.
That's the way it is. So it is. We're going to bring in the children now. Yes, children coming in. I think the children are coming. Oh, here they come. Yep. We thank you for allowing us to come here today and be part of this wonderful anniversary with you.
Come on all the way over.
White bread, the clap on the upbeat.
All right. Okay, come on all the way down here. Okay, McKaylee, can you hold up your egg? Okay, we created an egg today, and the egg represents the 3 parts of us, which is our spirit, our mind, and our body. And on the egg, there is a little tiny mirror. And when we look in that mirror, it reminds us that we are all part of everything that is, and how we think and choose is how we make our days bright and happy. So that's what we did today, and then we had some little bunnies that are made out of washcloths. So that was our day today. So and happy Easter to everyone, and be sure to enjoy the celebration after service. Thank you.
So sing a peace song.
Yes, there is peace on
Amen.